طيب، مرحبا بكم مرة أخرى. من دواعي سروري أن أقدم لكم الآن الجلسة الحوارية الثانية لهذا اليوم بعنوان إعادة التفكير في الدراسات العليا، الابتكار، الحوكمة والتأثير. يدير الجلسة الدكتور باسل صلوخ، العميد المشارك لكلية العلوم الاجتماعية والإنسانية في معهد الدوحة. ويشارك في هذه الجلسة الدكتور تاكي ألفريد هو من جامعة مدينة هونغ كونغ، الدكتورة ناتاشا فالا من جامعة سيانسس بو، الدكتور عمرو عزت سلامة الأمين العام لاتحاد الجامعات العربية، الدكتورة ليلى غويرا من جامعة لندن للاقتصاد، والدكتور أيهب سعد عميد كلية الاقتصاد والإدارة والسياسات العامة في معهد الدوحة. فليتفضلوا مشكورين.
Okay, thank you so much for coming back to this session. We have a stellar lineup, and I want to try to use all the time we have to discuss. The main theme of our session today is rethinking graduate studies with a focus on innovation, governance, and impact. And we've divided it into four broad themes: graduate studies in a changing global environment, graduate studies and public policy, graduate studies and the role of graduate studies in a world of AI, and this will be something that spills over from the previous session, and finally graduate studies and governance and knowledge extraction, another theme that was discussed briefly in the previous session. But before that, I need to generously introduce our guests, and I'll start with His Excellency معاليك أهلا وسهلا بالدوحة. Dr. عمرو عزت سلامة is the Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities and a professor of structural engineering at Helwan University in Egypt. Prior to this, he was Egypt's Minister of Higher Education, Scientific Research, and Technology. He was also a member of the Shura Council, chair of its Housing Committee, and president of Helwan University, and a counselor at the American University in Cairo. He has held key leadership roles, including chairman of the Management Engineering Society, chairman of the Board of Trustees of the 57357 Foundation for the Children's Cancer Hospital, and chairman of the Council of Housing and Building at the Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. أهلا وسهلا معاليك. Dr. Natasha Vala is an economist and serves as Dean of Sciences Po's School of Management and Innovation. Her expertise lies in financial macroeconomics and monetary policy, combined with shaping financial and economic policy in Europe. Her career includes leadership roles at the European Central Bank, where she was Deputy Director General of Monetary Policy, and the European Investment Bank. She also served as Vice President at Goldman Sachs Global Investment Research and is currently Senior Advisor to Lazard. Natasha is also a member of the board of directors of a number of multinational groups and financial institutions, including LVMH, a member of a number of scientific advisory bodies, including DI, and an active contributor to the field of classical music. Dr. Leila Guerra is Associate Vice President, Education, focused on lifelong learning at the London School of Economics. She has more than 2 decades of global leadership in higher education across Europe and Asia, having worked previously at Imperial College London as Associate Provost for Lifelong Learning and Vice Dean. Prior to this, Leila served as Assistant Dean at Singapore Management University, Executive Director for Early Career Programs at London Business School, and Director of Innovation at IE Business School in Madrid. She serves on multiple education boards with a special focus on lifelong learning, digital learning, interdisciplinary collaboration, and inclusive, human-centered education. Dr. Alfred Ho serves in multiple roles at City University of Hong Kong. He is Chair Professor of Public Policy and Governance of the Department of Public and International Affairs, the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, and the Director of the Institute of Global Governance and Innovation for a Shared Future. Alfred is also an elected Overseas Fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration in the US, the Vice President for Asia of the International Research Society for Public Management, an advisory group member of the Chief Executive's Policy Unit of the Hong Kong Special Administration Region, and an advisor to the Hong Kong International Academy Against Corruption. His research focuses on government performance management, e-government, citizen engagement, and cross-sectoral collaboration in industrial development. And finally, of course, our very own Dr. Ayhab Saad, Dean of the School of Economics and Administration and Public Policy. Ayhab is an economist whose research crosses over applied microeconomics, international trade, development economics, labor economics, and political economy. His research employs quasi-experimental methods to examine the economics of households, labor markets, education, demographic changes, and conflict in developing countries. A very warm welcome to all of you here at TR. And I want to start with both Natasha and Ayhab. The economic historian Adam Tooze coined a new term, polycrisis, to describe the world we live in, which is the world of multiple crises, the sum of which is greater than the effect of each part. I want to start with a broad question to both of you. What is the future of graduate studies, and how do we train our students in graduate education for this kind of world of polycrisis? Natasha, if we can start with you, please.
Thank you very much for this introduction and for the invitation to be here. It's an honor for me. We have a program with DI hosting master students, and we have now this year we have a PhD candidate that entered our program as well. And I have to say the Arabic world is about 20% of our foreign students, Morocco being the main place of origin, but we have strong links organically. This is a very difficult question that you ask, because using the word polycrisis means poly something. And for a university that provides education that has some degree of specialization by design, you feel you have to make a compromise between the quality, the border, the excellence in what you offer to your students, whether they go to academia or they go to a profession after they're done with you. And you have, on top of this excellence, to give them an ability, first to understand the world in which we are and to understand the nature of crisis, but also to be able to trigger change in organizations, in the professional world, and as citizens as well. So I think this is something that we need to recognize as a twin objective. So I think we still have this excellence and specialization as a goal, but keeping in mind that we need this broader context, and this broader context doesn't come naturally. You have to feed students, and you have to make them aware that if you end up with an engineering degree, it's also useful to know geopolitics. It's also useful to know history, to understand what you will have to be doing and deciding in your professional life. So I think this is one dimension, this pluridisciplinarity that has to be somehow embedded in parcours which are leading to excellence. That's a challenge, because when we do curricula, one of the main constraints we have is the time of students. I mean, days have 24 hours and they need to spend so much time doing their main subject. But I think this should be an aim per se. The second one has to do more with academics and faculty. I think there needs to be a search for relevance. I mean, this is perhaps a tautology, but the relevance of the topics to the current state of the world are of the essence as we currently. It's not enough to say We have academic freedom. That's a big thing for us in France, at least. Academic freedom. In the name of academic freedom, you can say anything, study anything. And it is key to have academic freedom. But academic freedom being irrelevant, it's like multiplying an infinity factor to 0. You're not sure what it makes out in the real world. So I think producing critical independent thinkers, professionals, because most of students end up outside of academia, with a relevance dimension is really key. You may say, well, but we will lose the art for art dimension of science and maybe lose this independence of creativity of mind. I don't think so. I think that if students are really anchored in reality, that works. Higher education should look for hybrid profiles. What we're launching, we have a policy of launching dual degrees at Sciences Po with engineering schools, for example. You know, we are a school for social sciences, known for that, best of the world for that, but we're not quantitative. We're not perceived as being quantitative. For us, it was a revolutionary thinking to say, you know, someone who studies political science, you know what? He will need to have quantitative skills at the beginning of his degrees, his or her degree. If they don't have it, we will provide that to them. So that's one thing. And then to anchor that in a reality, we also say, okay, we'll open our doors to engineer students who want to have a master's degree in social sciences. And by hybriding skills, you create really this ability to have the resilience to the polycrisis that we are facing. Maybe a last thing I will say is perhaps also the exposure of students to academics, to faculty from university, but also to professionals. This is something where I think there's no one religion, but it's important for me, I think, for those individuals who have had a career outside of academia, who are not academic, you know, with a pedigree of, you know, academic high-level publication, to recognize what they can bring to students, and to allow for statuses that allow those flows from academia to non-academia, from academia to policy work. I mean, that's a bit the story of my life, in a sense. And the link between academia and policy means that you will remain relevant, and that brings me back to my first point. The link between academia and the firm means that you're remaining relevant. In the field of finance, we have a master's in finance where 90% of our students go to banks. You see in the US, but also in other countries, the best brains in finance that produce the best academic research, most of them, they have or are working in funds, in banks, in the financial industry. It doesn't mean it poses questions of ethics. The ethics question is bigger when it comes to policy making even, but I think individuals should be made responsible for bearing the ethics with them and for being able to know where they sit and for the interest of whom they are doing what they do. And in a university or in a school, you're there for the students. And being there for the students, you should be able to mobilize all the areas of what you've learned throughout your professional life for them to be the best when they come to the job market, academic or not. So I would close here for this first question.
Well, you've covered so many themes that we will probably come back to them in the next sections. Ahab, this theme of hybridity is big at DI. How do you see the role of graduate studies in the future?
Yes. Is it on? No. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see many faces. Haven't seen you for a long time, and our guests. Welcome to DI, as we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. It's already been 10 years. Wow, you know, I couldn't believe it. So it's been a remarkable journey. So back to your question, Bassel, and thanks for the introduction. So I think polycrisis, we don't need a new terminology or, in the region. We live in a constant, multiple overlapping crisis, right? So Lebanon in economic fall down, Syria is still fragmented, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, genocide in Gaza, you just name it. This is a constant feature of our region. So, I mean, what's new here when I think about polycrisis, I think the way or the system that governs those crises are evolving very fast. We are relying in a system that we really don't understand. So, like these new technologies, like this automated decision-making in aid, for example, or predictive policing and so on. So the technologies we are governing these crises are evolving. And I think a remarkable feature of the crises in the region, they are not isolated. I think the crises we have, they are interconnected, and they are deeply rooted in the political structure that keep producing them to survive or to maintain itself. So going back to DI, what this means to us, most of our students are actually coming from these areas, right? So for us, it's not just a matter of luxury or a trend that we need to deal with polycrisis. This is actually what our students do. This is what they research. They mostly come from Yemen, Sudan, and so on. So they work on these urgent issues and urgent matters. Most of their work is based or grounded on their lived experience, right? So we have to respond. Like as DI, we have to respond to this by designing our program to fit this reality, right? So for us, our program has to be, by design, and this is one of the mission of DI, to be interdisciplinary in a way. So for our students to understand this complex reality around them, they need to study economics, law, philosophy, history, and so on. So yes, interdisciplinary is a key here to prepare our students to deal with the polycrisis, that they are really interconnected with each other. In addition, like, in our classroom, also we always think about our students to think in ethical manner, an ethical way of the decision making. Who's been heard, why we produce the kind of knowledge we're producing, when we're talking about whatever the consequences of policies. So we want our students to understand this complexities through interdisciplinary knowledge, but also want them to act responsibly and ethically be on the top of things and understand and analyze the consequences of decision making and so on. So I think this is part of what we do at DI. It's not an emerging issue for us. It's a standard practice. Our job here is to provide the safe and space for our students to express themselves, especially students coming from those areas, and flourish and be able to study those crises from their own perspective or own lived experience.
Alfred, what can you tell us from your experience as to how to handle this balance between specialization and yet being agile, being able to move between the university and the professional world? What does your experience brings to this theme, especially in our changing world?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is actually, I think, the third time that I'm here, and also going back to the earlier session about the importance of having this kind of network, I can applaud to Dean Jing's leadership, Fudan University, and also Secretary General Salama's leadership of building the China-Arab network. So we, City University of Hong Kong, is part of the network, and we benefit from that, and that's why we got connected with Doha and other institutions. And going back to your question about having that kind of preparation is so important for our students in Asia, and including Hong Kong, to really understand the world here. I think we a lot of times don't understand this world, and we are so fortunate that we don't live through the level of crisis that you mentioned in Hong Kong or in Asia, but we need to understand. And so I think you challenged me to think about connecting the university and the professional practice. I think it's very important for us in the graduate programs or even in the undergrad programs to build in the experiential learning. We want students to experience, especially now with AI, a lot of things you could just sit in front of a computer and you think you learn something. But I think it's important to be on the ground, working with people, and re-experience education. And I think, let me also add one more reason why it's important to have that connection through experience. Internship, we have a lot of internship in our programs. We have a lot of overseas study program. The other reason why I think in this future world to have that experiential learning is because one of the important skills I'm going to OECD is in the future world is empathy. It's very important. We can, with knowledge-wise, we could actually understand our things, know our things, but without empathy, we don't know how to act. And empathy cannot be taught. You have to experience. And so I think connecting the university education with the professional world is important for our students to have that experience in the work setting, in the real setting.
Leila, this is your specialization in many ways, lifelong learning. I'd like to hear your input on this as well, your opinion.
Yes, and I think it's a really important point. But let me first say by thanking everybody for the very kind invitation. It is a pleasure and a privilege for London School of Economics to be here today, for me to be able to spend some time with you here in Doha. And congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. We talked about lifelong learning, and we also talked about the fact that 10 years is nothing. It's such a short span, but how much impact has already been achieved. And I was reflecting on the last 10 years, and can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. I do move a lot. I'm very sorry. I'm from Spain, so we do tend to. I was reflecting on how impact measures and what kind of experience we had 10 years ago to where we are right now. And it reflected on the talk about data. And we all love data, don't we? How many of you are maybe at a dinner or at a conference and you hear something and you Google immediately, or now you chat GDP immediately what you're hearing because you find evidence of your own opinion? I see a few nods here. And it's because we really care about this. We've allowed data to dominate our conversation, and we've allowed, particularly in times of big data, to confuse what data is and what evidence is, and what a fact is and what critical judgments is. And so the reason I want to mention it is LSE, if you don't know it, is a fact-based, research-based university. We've been around for 130 years. And all of the discussions we have about the future are certainly data-based. But we're also observing that data without purpose has little meaning. And data without evidence does not allow us to progress in the right direction. And it's really that reflection about how universities have used data to scale, to drive our quality up, to be more accountable, to allow accreditation bodies and even rankings bodies to reflect what our nature should be, what our purpose should be, that has impregnated many of our decisions. But if they don't come with judgment, if they don't come with meaning, and if they don't come with even humility to understand where we're getting things really wrong, we will not be able to address the future in a way that addresses what our students demand. We talked about lifelong learning. Do we really think that front-loading education in the first 3 years of someone's young adulthood is the right way forward? Do we believe in a time where we're talking about 100-year life? China is leading on this. We're all going to live happily and healthily to the 100 years. That just 3 to 4 years at the beginning of someone's journey will be enough. Now, data tells us that's not the case, which is why lifelong learning comes in. Common sense also tells us that universities are the ones best prepared to answer that challenge. And so what it means, in my view, is that we need to translate big data into smart data. We need to translate information to purpose, and we need to balance that with an evidence that is allowing us to use common sense, often very forgotten, to challenge those bodies, including accreditations, that are potentially keeping us in boundaries that are not longer fit for purpose, and to, in a way, go back to the basics. And the basics is, why are we here? Once we answer that question, we will be able to fit better our strategic developments further.
Wow. There is so much there that we need to unpack, but we'll try to do that as we move along. But I will move to Your Excellency, and I want to hear sort of an Arab perspective on the future of graduate studies in the region. Your take on what's going on in the Arab world in terms of graduate education and the challenges that we've heard about.
First, thank you for the invitation, and it's a pleasure for me actually to be with you today to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Actually, I felt that I didn't realize that it's only 10 years. I felt that the impact of this institution feels that it has a long history for them. So allow me to extend my warmest congratulations to the leadership, faculty, and the students of this outstanding institution. This anniversary actually is more than a celebration. I think it is a moment to reflect on the future of graduate education in our region, in the Arab region, and how we can collectively prepare to meet the challenges of a rapid changing world, actually. So, going to your question, I think that the Arab world has all the ingredients, and I believe that really to become a regional hub for graduate education, or graduate excellence, talent, heritage, and the growing spirit of cooperation. And maybe you have seen an example of cooperation with China, and this is one of the examples. Across the region, we are observing nowadays a new wave of transformation that links graduate research with national and regional development and priorities. And this is clear in many Arab countries, actually. As the Association of Arab Universities, which now includes nearly around 500 universities from across 22 Arab countries, we are working to build a truly connected Arab higher education space. We are trying to have a higher education space just like the European one, where students, researchers, and ideas can move freely. The association, together with the Alexo and the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research of Iraq, is working on the project to establish an Arab higher education area. Through initiatives such as the Arab Fund for Scientific Research and the Prince Mohammed bin Fahd University Awards, we promote joint programs, shared research databases, and regional mentorship models that recognize outstanding collaboration between Arab and international universities. In addition to that, there are many inspiring examples from Arabic universities, such as here in Doha Institute for Graduate Studies has established itself as a regional leader in the humanities and social sciences, producing research that addresses Arab societies, political, cultural, and development transformations. Khalifa University, for example, at the UAE, and King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia are attracting global talent in artificial intelligence, energy transition, and nanotechnology. Cairo University and the University of Jordan are developing interdisciplinary graduate programs that tackle pressing social challenges from water management to public health innovation. These are some examples, and there are so many other examples all over the Arab countries. Our shared vision is clear, is to make the Arab region a space where our universities are not only consumers of global knowledge, but active contributors to global innovation and excellence. And here maybe I second Dr. Dalal's word about that we shouldn't be consumers of artificial intelligence, but we should be shareholders in producing whatever in artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, this issue of knowledge production from the region is an obsession at DI, and so it's actually in our mission. So we work very hard to make sure that we actually produce knowledge from this part of the world and not just consume it. I want to move to the second theme of the session, which is graduate education, technological change, and inclusiveness. And I want to throw a question to all of you. I want all of you to react to this, because in a sense, Leila instigated it. How do you react to the invasion of AI into our classrooms and into the educational process? I know Ahmed spoke about that powerfully in the previous session, but I would like to get your take, because you all come from different places. And I'll start with you, Leila, since you had so much to say about data.
Okay, happy to take that first. Look, I think the first one is we just need to embrace it. If there's anybody here in this room that thinks AI is a trend and AI is just this small, it's not. It's here. It has permanently and forever changed all of the way we work, we operate, and we live. And that goes for every industry. And of course, higher education, giving the burden and responsibility, we have to shape future leaders. We need to be the first ones understanding, are we asking the right questions when it comes to AI? And so let me very briefly mean what I say with that. When it comes to the classroom, I often hear universities talking about plagiarism and how to work AI from a perspective of making sure students do not cheat. For me, that's a wrong approach. We've established at LSE in collaboration with other universities a framework on AI. It's called the Responsible AI Framework that touches on all of the elements that are relevant to universities. Governance structures. Do you have the right governance structures? Research. How are you handling the research and the impact it has on AI when your PhD students are already using it, when your faculty are already using it? Teaching. We need to make sure that students know how to use it. What is the ethical way of using AI? And then, of course, operational efficiencies. This morning, we mentioned that one of our biggest pressures are the financial pressures we all face. How can that actually alleviate some of those pressures? When we look into this from a corporate engagement, from a framework engagement, we can start finding solutions. I also want to mention very briefly the fact that we talk about AI as this anonymous anthem that we all use. It's not. It's owned by companies. And it's not just an information provider. It harvests information. Everything we put in all of our AI tools is being harvested. So you talk about knowledge exchange. We might not be willing to share our knowledge with the universities, which actually we do share, but many of our academics have actually not really thought about the fact that they're putting it in a system that is harvesting that information. So how do you have those conversations? When it comes to the students, I just want to finish by saying, in my case, I believe we have the responsibility to educate them, and that goes through giving them all of the AI tools, making sure that they have the critical judgment and the human nature-led approach to understand how AI can be used. And also linking it to the fact that there are quite a lot of informations that are being shared that can be quite scary, and how to manage this, including AI will kill all these jobs, which I don't believe in.
Which makes me invite Natasha to react to the question, since you come from the world of finance and.
Yeah, I will bounce back on what has been said, and I will say three things actually. One, on the consumer versus producer topic, very important topic that you mentioned, it is perhaps pregnant here, key for the region. It is very key for Europe as well. We feel exactly the same way. We feel that we don't really have a policy, we don't really have the means to coordinate, to have a thoughtful sort of positioning of ourselves in the global AI technological world. So this is something where there's one supremacy in the world, and we're all fighting with finding a solution. So I feel very solidarity to the topic that was raised and also brought up earlier. Let me give you an example on the how AI comes into finance and what that means for the question we discussed. An example that happened in my class of international finance. Like all professors, I needed to find a way to have evaluation tools that would be AI-proof. So I said, okay, we do an exercise in class. And we'll do a trading session in class. So groups of students trading on, that was the foreign exchange market. How do I do that? I asked the AI class to design a game for my students in class to be, evaluated through a tool that would be generated by AI, but AI-proof. They couldn't sit at home, ask ChatGPT, and give the answer. I was wrong because they were sitting in front of the game. They start the game, and there was an investment bank, there was a central bank, there was a big industrial company, and they start the game. And one of them had to compute the order book, to sum up. It's really a sum that you can do by hand of the order flows that each of the players was computing. And the student who did that, he didn't really, when he had to explain what he was doing, he was not clear. And then after a couple of minutes, he gave away that he was not able to compute the order book himself. So he used ChatGPT to input the thing. Yeah. So to say, we don't have an answer, and we need to be alert, and it's a try and error game, but we really need, and I agree, to have a framework to see how it should evolve and embrace AI to see the shortcomings and limitations. I think AI also has something to tell us, and that allows me to bring back, if you allow me, to on lifelong education. When I came into this university role as a dean, I was struck, because I was coming from outside, by the fact that we have executive education on one hand and call it initial education on the other hand. Why on earth, for the very reasons you gave, should we be forcing people to do as much as they can at the beginning and then probably nothing for 20 years? And then at some point, if the firm for which they are working is nice enough, they get a bit of something else, or if they have the initiative themselves. I really think, and I never heard any good reason given to me to say it should be that way. To me, it should be a continuum, and I wouldn't see any issue in having older people taking my initial master's degrees. So I think we should really push for that, because I think it's a typical case of inherited systems from an era where demographics were different, where the structure of jobs was different, and we should really create a mini revolution for that. Maybe AI will help us, maybe not, but I think that's a key topic.
I think Alfred has a lot to tell us about this topic. This is technically your baby, so.
So because I have so much to talk about, I know I'm going to run over time. So in order to structure my talk, I have a PowerPoint. So let me bring up.
He is the only one who has PowerPoints, I promise.
Because the topic is so big, it is not. Are you showing my screen here?
Yes, we can see.
It is not my screen over here. Will you change my screen?
Is that the one? Is that one?
No, it's not my screen.
On the laptop.
Yeah, the laptop. Yeah. Do you go back to the laptop? Anyway, so I want to actually share with you actually some of the things that we are doing with AI because I think kind of like what President have said that it is important for the faculty members to get their hands dirty and actually do something about it. And so our university actually have done a lot of work related to AI, and there you go. Yeah, and then you do the full screen. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There you go. So I want to just very quickly to talk about this as the context, because in our College of Liberal Arts and Social Science, what we call class, Liberal Arts and Social Science, like CLASS. So we are very classy. So we have actually history, behavioral sciences, psychology, international affairs, public policy, linguistics, etc. So that allows us to do a lot of interdisciplinary work within our college. So imagine, for example, when we talk about big data, AI, we actually have the linguistic faculty members doing the large language model that we apply to some tasks in the Chinese history project. That could have some psychology faculty members do experiment to see the impact on students and users. So this is some of the examples or some of the work that we are doing. And these are all the master programs. Now, since we're talking about AI, so I want to show you that AI indeed are going to change a lot of the way we could do our work. The way we may actually offer education, how we could actually personalize the process. Let me give you a concrete example. In our college, a year or so ago, I funded a project by one of our communication and media professor who developed a chatbot. And so if you could actually click that, it should be working. Basically, the students sometimes email us late at night, expecting answer by 1 a.m. in the morning so that they can apply for scholarship so that they won't be late, right? And they blame us that we didn't reply to email, and so they fail, right? So instead of doing that, now we say, okay, we'll have a chatbot, and it will actually automatically scan through the data and respond. And so we actually developed it in-house by a professor having a tech company now, startup company with that technology. And so it's very interesting. I want to show you the research behind it. We find that it's very important to build the trust. So we learn from our experience doing it, and we find that it is important for the staff to trust the system, because if they don't trust the system, they won't use it. It's also important for the students to trust the system. And so that trust have to be under that. And we also actually benchmark ourselves with other tools like ChatGPT and also DeepSeek. And the internally designed chatbot so far has been performing at par with their performance. So we are proud of that. But I think it's important to build that ecosystem, to build that user and also the developer interface to make sure that it is working. But also that tells you that AI actually takes a lot of time. I'll give you one example. A lot of times people think that big data is there and so you need to have a lot of data. In our chatbot project, we find that if we just use the normal chatbot and AI to do it, they will scan through a lot of wrong information. We asked the chatbot, who is the president of our university? And they actually answer someone that was 2 terms ago, because that's in the web, right? So those are things that have to be very carefully used and also have a lot of internal process to do trial and error. And we have actually some research behind it to actually find out. Let me show you another AI thing that could potentially change our education. And we are playing with that now in our university, in our college. You see this beautiful girl, right? And so she is going to be our newsletter. We call it view letters. No more, because we find that our students don't read emails. I don't know about your students. DI students probably are much better. Our students don't read emails, okay? They only do the visual stuff. And so we find that in order to engage them and tell them, hey, that is a scholarship deadline, or this is where you apply for overseas to come to DI. They don't read the emails, and so they miss, they blame us. So we said, let's use a visual tool. And so we actually developed this a video newsletter, okay? And this person is actually a fake person. It's AI generated. And so we could actually generate all kinds of information and then push it through Instagram, etc., so that they get information. And so I joke with my friends that at least I could get half of my students, because all the male students pay attention. So now we are developing the other half. So I just saw the AI-generated handsome boy that hopefully will attract the other half of my students, and then we get them all, right? But that tells you the future. And so half-jokingly, if you think about it, in the future, with this kind of tool, with AI, potentially we could use them to teach classes, right? And so the question later about what are the roles of professor in the future, right? We will be jobless. Anyway, so we have another project that we are launching. We are launching also interdisciplinary work, since I know DI also has social science, you also have humanities. We are working closely together. This is the Metaverse project they're working on. So if you go into the Metaverse, you will actually learn different tools. You see that on the left-hand side picture, you see all this poster thing on the wall. You click on any of them, will go to a lecture of that particular topic. So the students could actually profile, could go for their interest and also pace themselves to go for different topics. On the right-hand side, you see this poster about, it's actually a historical heritage of a local district where our university is located. So students could actually go through that and learn about the history of that district and think about the future development of that district. So this is where we are using Metaverse and also AI to think about how we could engage learning, etc. So there are a lot of potential benefits, and there are a lot of assisted research. Again, I joke with my faculty members in the Chinese history department in this. Right now, you see this poster. I say, what if Professor Mabel Jiang, in the future, could I develop a Professor Jiang as an avatar, as an AI, and then in the classroom, then I will go in and ask any question about some Shui-Po district in Hong Kong, and that person can answer everything, because that AI will scan through all your papers and your research about some Shui-Po, and that person will know more than you do. Is it okay for me to clone your face into the AI world? And she said no yet. So that is a resistance so far, but hopefully we'll see. But I'm joking aside, but you think about that, education could be really changed, transformed. And so what will be good? And so the assessment also will be, what will we do with all this stuff? So by the way, I also want to show you this. By the way, this is actually a fashion show that we're working with some of the designers in the local community. You see this is a real person. Now, this is not a fake AI person. This is a real model that we work with. But right beside her is an AI-generated digital art that we were developing so that we create that kind of experience. On the right side, you see there's something flipping, right? That is the video that we talk about. Actually, this is, again, you see this is a local district in Hong Kong. You see all this public housing, right? The local district. All these models walking around doing fashion show, right? And so you say, wow, Hong Kong models are so beautiful and Hong Kong is so clean and so wonderful, right? Okay, this is a project that we are also doing with the professions, and the whole movie is AI generated. Not a single person is real. Okay, that is the future that we are playing with. And so, again, what are the implications for us in the graduate study? First of all, I think we do need to have more digital literacy training for staff, faculty members, and students. We are doing it ourselves. We need to have IT support. We need money to support all these tools. We also need to think about the structural changes. Could we change the process and the rules, even staff assignments to embrace all this? And also, we need to have a lot of pilot testing, allow errors, and also to be corrected and learn from the mistakes, and also have very careful tools to analyze what can be done and what should not be done. Right? Those are the very important issues. One thing I could actually share with you that in Hong Kong, also in other parts of the world, a lot of controversy is about whether professors could use AI to grade student papers. Students are using AI, right? But could professors use AI to grade so that we don't need to do work? So far, there are a lot of scandal, and they complain, in Hong Kong included. They said, we pay the tuition. How dare you use AI to grade my papers? So again, it's not a technological tools, right? It's a social, cultural expectation of professors. So will it be changed in the future? We don't know, but this is something that we need to watch. So again, there are some fundamental questions. One is AI good for learning? It's a thing have been talked a lot about. So in our university, in our college, we basically say it depends on the subject matters. Sometimes you should indeed use AI to replace the whole thing. Just don't do it anymore. Use AI to do it. Sometimes it has to be AI assistant, but in some subject matters, in some skills, you actually don't even want AI to be included. And so those are subject matters, domain-driven. And also, what are the roles of human in the future AI-empowered society? And that's something that we are wrestling with. And also, how do we have actually to address a significant digital divide? Because I could tell you one example. In our universities, with the AI tools, the students who have a lot of money, who could buy a lot of tokens, they are so much better. But some of the poor students in our college, if they don't have the tools, their assignment will be different. So how do we address that kind of gap? So those are some of the issues that I think have a lot to do, and we could think about this. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Alfred.
This is going to be very dangerous.
I want to come to you, Your Excellency, because, and I want to pick your brain on two things. I mean, are we moving into the kind of world of greater inequalities within societies, but also greater inequalities between countries in the so-called global south?
Sure. First, let me say that, yes, thank you for the presentation, actually, and I enjoyed it very much. But let me say before answering your question, that يعني I feel that the new generation, I think we will see different human beings in the future. And if you depend on AI in such a way, the interaction between people, the leadership of the professors and teachers, the social activities which became very different, and we started seeing it between our children and our grandchildren, which became every one of them is sitting in front of his iPhone or iPad or laptop, and I think we are going to see in few years a different human being. يعني that's different. That's يعني definitely that will happen, but I can't see يعني how they are going to live together in the future. They will manage, but يعني I think it's going to be a different world يعني anyhow. But let me say that I believe it is possible. It's possible that يعني graduate education in the global south become an engine of inclusive innovation and social justice. Definitely, yes, I believe that. We believe that in the Association of Arab Universities. We see excellence not just as high standards, but as education that is accessible and makes a real difference in people's lives. And accessibility here is very important. And as you mentioned, actually, there's going to be some difference, but I think most of the global south countries are trying to catch up. We already see inspiring examples across the Arab region, actually, and I usually like to give some examples, from some universities in the Arab region, and here in Egypt, for example, and Shams University, and there are several universities, actually, among them the American University in Cairo, actually. The innovation hubs connects graduate research and community needs, developing low-cost medical devices and mobility solutions for underserved areas. The University of Safakis in Tunisia, and I want to give some examples from different Arab countries, actually. Graduate research in agriculture and bioengineering has evolved into startups serving rural communities. Through digital university initiatives, including the Arab Platform for Education and Training, we are expanding access to learning via open platforms and micro-credentials, particularly for students in conflict-affected or remote areas. Several Arab universities also provided digital support, specifically for Palestinian students and Gaza students through e-learning platforms. And this was very successful and very efficient, actually. These platforms help bridge educational gaps, promote inclusion, and ensure that students can continue their studies despite challenging circumstances. We also celebrate progress in gender inclusion. And this is one of the things which I'm happy with it in the Arab area, that 52% of postgraduate students across the Arab world are women. Yet gaps persist in science and technology fields. Let me say at the end of this that when innovation serves human needs and technology broadens opportunity, graduate education becomes a true engine of empowerment, not exclusion.
Thank you. I want to ask one more question on AI and then one more question on data before we move to the theme of public policy. And this is to all of you. Do we really know what smart graduate education looks like in the next 10 years? Can you dream it? Layla?
I'll take a very quick reflection also after seeing your slides, and thank you for them. So hundreds of years ago, we would walk to places, right? And then we invented, taking courses, and then we invented the cars, and now we invented the planes. And so it means that we can get to the same places much, much quicker. But we always knew what the destination was. And it always mattered where we were going. So the transport was a way to get to that place. With AI, we're now talking about acceleration for acceleration purpose. It's not really clear that we actually know where we're heading with all of this. And we are maybe not reflecting enough, and I'll come back to answer your question, on what the impact this will create for students. So I was looking at your AI journalist, and I thought, that's great. However, when you're at university, you have the freedom to fail, to try, to test, to just experiment. We all did this when we went to universities. And the more senior you get, the more that option to fail is removed from you because of social pressures. And so if we're now removing the option of our young graduates to actually learn how to do things by also failing, how are they going to get those skills? As my president always says, the only way to learn how to play a guitar is by playing hours very badly, the guitar, and one day you'll master it. If you play a sport, it will be the same for you. So we've now found shortcuts. Great. We'll save money, we'll be more efficient, and we'll obviously learn a lot. And by the way, I love gadgets. I try them all. I've tried holograms, digital lenses. I have a digital twin. I have an avatar. I tried them all. But the smart graduate will be able to judge why. What's the destination? Why are we needing those? How will they impact them? And so it's balancing the need to give them the technological kits, and we haven't even started talking about what it means for our academics to be able to teach in that area. But at the same time, it's bringing back philosophy. It's bringing back critical judgments. It's bringing back the reason and the discussion around the purpose of this, because otherwise we're going to have graduates that, yes, will have great technology skills, but might not have learned how to fail, and therefore we've just created a shortcut that they actually didn't need.
Alfred, I know you want to jump into this.
Well, I mean, you see that we are doing a lot to empower our faculty members to play with the tools and even use university exactly what you suggest as a sandbox to pilot test some ideas before we go to the industry and tell them it works, right? So that chatbot, we tested for 18 months. A lot of errors, and then we correct them. But going back to the graduate students, what is a smart education? I think besides the knowledge skills, I think are very important. I think we kind of echo what you said. We are also hoping our students will build up more resilience because changes are happening so fast, so much. And so they need to deal with challenges and ups and downs. And so through counseling, also through life experiences, through examples, through alumni sharing, let them know failures are okay. And so that's the resilience I think is very important. Also, I think we are advocating in our college now. We actually have a cross-disciplinary research cluster pulling together like psychology, Chinese and history, English literature, media communication, linguistics, etc., to look at two areas of literacy. One is digital literacy. I think going back to the earlier panel about the digital literacy, AI ready, and also the risk. And need to know what are the flaws and risks. And so that's digital literacy and competency, and also the cultural literacy. Given the fact that the tools are so readily available, but if you don't know how to prompt, you don't understand the culture and the language and the heritage, you won't prompt well in those fashion. If I prompt it, it'll be really terrible. But the people who have training, cultural training, they prompt it is much more better, right? So cultural literacy, I think, is very important. And finally, I would say, going back to the fundamental questions, the purpose, ethics, and values are very important. Why are we here? What are you trying to do as an individual person, as a citizen of a country, and also as a citizen of the global world, the common future? And so we need to help our students understand to how to anchor their value system, the ethics, in this context.
I would like to link that point to what Your Excellency have said about what the next generations will look like. And, higher education is a step that comes after primary education, that comes after kindergarten. So there's a whole sequence that brings us to the adulthood. And there's one thing we haven't mentioned, which is mental health. and the fact that as humans we still live in societies and we live together and we need that link. And I'm not sure AI by design is taking this into account. So I think as well, I completely agree that we need those tools. Those are fantastic. And by the way, as an economist, I think that would be fantastic for productivity and for employment, but that's another topic. This being said, the mental resilience and mental health is really key. A second dimension is something you mentioned this morning when I was very emotional when I heard your own parcours, your own trajectory. But who will give motivation opportunities? You need that link, and that's a link that you cannot industrialize. You mentioned guitar playing. Students in music, those are one-to-one teaching hours, 4 hours and hours and hours. And at some point you meet someone who gives you this sparkle and says, you can do it. And don't listen to the other ones, and I will give you the tools to get to where I think you can go. And that drive, AI may help, but we still need this human dimension. So I think it's not, it's not opposed, it's not either or, but we really need to think about a way to preserve those human dimensions that will bring every individual to where he or she can be.
Absolutely. I think this is a good way to move to our next theme, which is graduate education and public policy, and how can, at a time of growing populism in the world and declining public trust in institutions, how can graduate education survive as a tool to produce civic values, democratic values, citizens who don't make shortcuts in their educational process? Leila, you want to start?
You're always exposing me. So, God,
Leila and then Ahab.
That's a great question. So LSE has just launched our new campaign, and it's based on one element, which is shaping the world we all need. After many years working in a STEM university, I've actually come to the conclusion that the biggest challenges humans and societies are currently facing are social science challenges. And one of them is polarization. And it's the fact that we have seemed to have forgotten how to debate and discuss with each other. And I don't know if you like football. I'm from Spain. I said it before. Real Madrid, off you go. And obviously, you kind of you are always following your football, forever. You don't really judge them. They just, oh yeah, Real Madrid, always. And we've kind of exported it to the rest of our lives, where we just believe in things in a moment where fake news and real news are very, very blurred. And so one of the things that I've recently observed, actually Kellogg, a school of business in the US, launched this Center for Enlightened Disagreement, which I loved, because it was like, that is such a great title. Okay, we're going to learn how to disagree. But then I realized that's what academia does all the time. When you're in academia, you are educated to disagree with each other, because that's how research happens, because that's how you progress with your research. So in a way, for me, polarization and the risk it includes needs to be addressed maybe by taking some of the best elements of the research environment and bringing it into the graduate environment. And that includes learning how to debate, and that includes freedom, academic scholarship. And that includes the fact that we all need to be a little bit more humble when it comes to discussing different point of views and understanding that we're not always in the full trust. But I might be biased. I am certainly biased. So sorry.
Yeah. But there is also this tendency to quantify everything, and that data should run everything, and data. There is this tension between a humanistic approach to education and, a data-driven approach to results and so on. Dean Ahab.
Yes, I knew you were going to ask this question. Yeah, I knew your stance on data and how you think about data. For some reason, you don't like data or quantitative. So let me tell you, for us as economists and many social scientists, including some political scientists, data is important for sure, right? To me, the question, especially in this region, whether we should treat data as neutral, entity, or we should question the data. So I think here comes, the critical thinking, or how we teach our students to use the data, and also our speakers here, touched upon this issue. Like, who collects the data? What's missing from this data, right? Is it it has political purposes or not? Is it collected by foreign agencies or for specific purposes or not? So this kind of question, we start to deneutralize data and start questioning it and asking it, what's the purpose of this data? So I think now data has more than numbers and has a meaning, and we can use it to tell really stories. So that doesn't mean, theory is not important or conceptual frameworks aren't. Of course they are important, but they have also come with their own complications, right? Especially when you want to apply it to the region. And this is what we teach our students here, right? Most of our theories and concepts we have, they come from the North or the West, and the questions, and with their assumptions. And the assumption might not apply to the region we have. So the question is, how do we use this theory to understand what's happening in Gaza or Beirut or Khartoum, or, so this kind of, we don't want to dismiss these theories, but also we want to question their assumption, and we want to see how we can use them to understand reality, using also the available data with a critical view of the data as well. So I think combining both conceptual frameworks and data, and having students who are able to jump and move between data and theory in a confident, comfortable way, this is the ultimate goal. And it's not either or. It's not quantitative or qualitative. So, and I cannot tell you data is not good. It's good, and we like to work with data. But again, we have to be careful, and also we have to be guided by conceptual frameworks as well.
We cannot live without data.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. Alfred, from your own experience and your work and practical experience and work in public policy, how do you think graduate institutions can strengthen public trust through engagement, community partnerships?
So I think, first of all, university could indeed be a sandbox for us to do something and then test some ideas out and let people debate and argue about something. I'm quite concerned, in fact, half jokingly but half seriously. You mentioned about in the future AI, and in Hong Kong now, because we have a lot of older generation living by themselves, because the children immigrate to the UK or some other places, and they have no grandchildren. They're all living by themselves and so lonely. So now we have some of our colleagues in the social work department are talking about how about we develop some AI so that they can every day have someone to talk to that person, right? So that's the positive side about the AI. But then, but the downside is we actually extrapolate from that. What if in the future there will be a very beautiful AI lady, and our student fall in love with that AI lady? Do we allow them to get married? No. So that kind of social, cultural, ethical issues, right? And so this is kind of like the mixed world. And so when you talk about how university could do something, in university, if we have enough freedom, we should be able to actually talk about these issues, extrapolate, look into the future, and talk about this and argue with each other. I'm afraid that if we don't have that freedom, don't have that safety, it is going to be difficult when we face the real challenges, and then we don't know how to respond. Same thing, I think, with students. It's important for them to really argue with each other a little bit. In Asia, in Hong Kong, in China, we have a lot of single child, and imagine the parents may not be there to argue with them. There are no brother and sister and sibling argue with them. And now, with AI, they don't certainly argue with you. And so they may not know how to handle a human interaction anymore. And so what that means by teamwork and how we handle conflicts. So I think those are some of the things that our university could build more, have that kind of interactive learning, challenge people to have to disagree and see what they do. I think that's the university's role.
Okay, I'm going to move now to the last theme, which is governance and knowledge extraction. graduate studies, governance, and knowledge extraction, because I'm aware that I would like to leave something like 15 minutes for questions and answers. And I also know President Ahmed wants to say something in this session, which is our honor, really. And I'll start with Your Excellency. If you can give us kind of a bird's eye view perspective on governance frameworks in higher education and graduate education in the Arab world.
Sure, yes. Well, let me say that good governance is the foundation of any successful graduate system, or even any successful thing to do. But of course, good governance is essential. Most of our Arab countries, if we talk about countries such as Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, have developed strong national quality assurance systems that now include graduate standards. Yes. In Egypt, for example, the National Authority for Quality Assurance and Accreditation has introduced sustainability and employability criteria into graduate program reviews. Arab Council for Quality Assurance and Accreditation in Higher Education is harmonizing these frameworks under a unified Arab quality framework for graduate studies, combining academic rigor with social responsibility and ethical standards. Innovative governance models are also emerging at Prince Sumaya University for Technology, for example, in Jordan. Graduate research governance now links directly to innovation outcomes, patents, startups, and societal projects. And in cooperation with the Arab League, we are, in the Association of Arab Universities, developing a regional charter on AI ethics in higher education to ensure that technology serves learning and research responsibly. And the Association of Arab Universities has also established key entities to advance sustainability and social responsibility in Arab higher education. These include Arab Council for Sustainable Development, the Arab Universities Knowledge Network for Climate Change and the Carbon Footprint, and the Council for Social Responsibility of Arab Universities. These bodies provide governance frameworks, guidance, and support to member institutions, ensuring that sustainable practice, ethical standards, and social responsibilities are embedded in academic programs, research, and institutional strategies. Let me say that effective governance is not about bureaucracy. It is about trust, transparency, and accountability. It ensures that excellence in graduate education translates into real value for our societies.
Thank you. Natasha, I know you want to say something about this topic from your perspective in Europe.
Yeah, I think accountability is key on all those dimensions that you mentioned. Who benefits, who pays, who is left behind, and accountability towards the representatives of the common good or public interests. I think this is of the essence. To link to the data dimension, I think there's the quality dimension also that is needed for the production of whatever looks like a data. A quality dimension that is often in many countries, associated with the independence of the National Statistical Institute that produces data, but there can be other forms. But I think this is the quality control on this dimension is key. And I think, as the third and last point, this ethical and deontological element can almost only be done among humans, so human to human. Sitting in a room in front of a white sheet of paper or given information set and seeing what the reaction is. I think, this is the way legal entities work, the popular juries, or I don't know how it's translated in English, but you have people from the civil society sitting there in sometimes very high stakes trials, sitting in front of some evidence data which has been gathered with the means that were available, and in front of their own conscience, they make a decision that then have an impact on the life of the person, concerned. So I think calling for the human dimension and human interaction for those aspects that have to do with ethics and deontology will remain an essential part of the process and of the governance.
Well, on this note, I want to end with a question for all of you, but I want IHAB to answer it last, to give us his perspective on DI, which is, what do you think from your vantage point, what do you think is the greatest challenge facing graduate education as we move forward? IHAB, I want you to go last simply to talk about the DI experience, and then we'll give President Dalal the chance to join us with a comment, and then I'll open it up for Q&As. Layla, I'll start with you.
Oh God, so many challenges and so many opportunities. Let me pick one. Obviously, I am lifelong learning. I think one of our biggest challenges is moving away from a concept of being a one-stop destination and becoming a place for progress, for debate, for learning throughout your life. We talked about the need for governance structures. We have to redefine our roles as collaborators, bringing down the walls to make sure that we can progress on this together. It is part of our vision and mission, after all, for universities. And I think we have to get the balance right between technology progress and human-centered designs. And I leave you with two maybe thoughts. One is we're supposed to be the last generation that will see companies with 100% human teams. And so how are we going to address that? And we're doing that at a time where 75% of Gen Zs and the youngers are skeptical of academic authority. And so even our own model needs to be redefined and communicated. But I have no doubt that in 10 years we will be here celebrating Doha Institute, and you will have managed to solve all these challenges, and we will be all learning from you.
Inshallah. Alfred.
I think, I don't know whether there are any students here. In our graduation ceremony, I joke with my graduate students that we will see you again. Because technologies are changing so fast, society is changing so fast, they have to come back and get another degree probably. Hopefully not PhD, but there's a chance that they may get 2 or 3 PhD in the future if lifelong. Now, given that, I think that one of the challenges we see in the graduate studies, master and other PhD, is who will pay. Because right now, government has to deal with so many responsibilities, social welfare and security and many things. Education may not be their priority anymore. Now, if not government, that means someone has to pay. If it's individual, then it goes back to some of the questions raised earlier. That means there'll be significant economic disparity, the divide between the rich and the poor and the have-not. And that elite education like DI, Harvard, LSE, they will be out there, always there. That's not the problem with that 5% people, right? But what about the 95% people? How could we support them to have that education? Who should pay? How should we finance education? And that's, I think, will be the challenge of future graduate studies.
Your Excellency.
Yes, well, I think universities have many challenges, but the most one, I think the most effective one is this great advancement in technology and the change in the market, in the employment market actually, and how to that university change their role not only in teaching in what they are doing just now, but to change themselves to micro credentials, to the capacity building, and they have to follow up with the changes that are happening very quickly in the society. We used to say that universities are the leading societies, but nowadays I think what is happening in technology is the one way that universities should follow what is happening in advancement in technology, so that it can prepare the new generations and re-prepare them continuously.
Natasha, I know you were getting into this towards the end of your comments, but if you can share with us some final thoughts.
Yes, maybe one is to make sure the higher education institutions will have to make sure that they protect the cognitive progress of humanity. I mean, those are big words, but make sure that we don't damage those cognitive abilities of our students by being lagging on tools, by using the tools not in the right way. And so I think that is really a key challenge. Another dimension is demographics. And I think different regions have different stakes, very different stakes. And I think this is a global issue that has to be taken from a global perspective, because there are really win-win situations. Yeah, and finance, I agree with the financing for the majority. Agree totally. I mean, the elite will always has its brand names, and we are there. But that's really a matter of serving the whole citizenship.
I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to end this question with me. I'm a bit, I wouldn't say skeptical, but let's see, I can see the data, analyze it, maybe do some forecasting. So I'll go back to the AI, and I think the biggest challenge is AI. And the reason is, I think AI is different. So let's face it, like, it's different from any other invention or technological change we had before. AI can think. It's an autonomous. They can make decisions. Like we talk about machines that can make decisions, that can think, that can write novels. They can produce novel and genuine new ideas. I mean, they do the things. They don't need us to guide them. And maybe so far, till now, I think to this day, maybe they still need us a bit, but I don't know in 10 years what's going to happen. So AI is different for sure. And to me, this is the question of what remains human, like what kind of skills or what kind of critical thinking or let's say ethical consideration or historical awareness that remained uniquely human and we need to focus on. So it's not just about using these advanced and fancy technologies. I think they're different this time and we need to think very deeply about it. That's one thing, and if I want to project this at the eye, even the problem is bigger, it's more complicated because also with the bias we talked about. So right now, AI is not only a tool that our students or we can use, they also shape our reality or their system to shape power. They are political tools at the end of the day, and we need to engage with them very critically, not only as tools. And to me, the biggest challenge for us in the next 10 years is how to go around these tools in a very ethical manner and stay grounded in, and our work stay grounded in the region, right? Focusing on ethical and political reality of the region.
Thank you so much. On this note, Dr. Dalal, the microphone is next to you.
Thank you for giving me the chance. I mean, I wouldn't have, there's a new panel and it's very rich and so on, but I'm thankful for the opportunity because really, what I consider to be the biggest challenge for higher education today, I didn't get to speak about. So I really think the largest challenge today to higher education is the erosion of the autonomy of higher education. We're seeing before our eyes, I mean, there are places where higher education didn't have autonomy, and they're not the models for us. But the institutions which we thought were models for us, we're seeing before our eyes an unfolding assault on the autonomy of higher education. And by the way, assault also on federal courts and assault on traditional media, not the new media. The three traditional sources of epistemic authority that we always relied on to know what we know. I mean, as a source of knowledge and so on. The experts in academia, the traditional media, which is critical and so on, with all its drawbacks, of course, and the federal courts. These are the three systems, and before our eyes, we're seeing, in the US specifically, a massive I mean, in other places, these institutions didn't have autonomy. But in the US, we thought they did, and there is a massive assault on these. You know, the higher education, I think, the primary principles, values that historically accounted for the autonomy of higher education are the freedom to choose who to teach, the freedom to choose what you teach and how you teach it, and also the freedom to choose who joins the university, who to teach. I mean, these 4 freedoms, and they're all, every single one of them is under attack, every single one of them. Again, historically, universities relied on endowments to secure some sort of autonomy and independence from the state. But again, endowments have a problem, have serious problems. The first problem is that many of the large endowments have become a small elite club, and, you know, where endowments are pursued for the sake of amassing money. I mean, not small endowments, but big endowments and so on. And there is a problem with that. But equally important, many universities, the endowments of many universities are complacent, are complicit with a sort of secular evil. You know, complacency in investment in funds that actually support apartheid and genocide, and we have the massive so the problem is not just external, and it's certainly external. External is the biggest problem, but even the techniques, the mechanisms for sustaining the autonomy of higher education are themselves questionable. So I think higher education needs to regain its legitimacy. It's not just a question of legality, it's a question of legitimacy. People are asking questions of higher education and the right to ask these questions. So higher education has to regain its legitimacy. And basically, you know, the bottom line is you cannot defend something that you cannot explain. We have first to explain it. We have to make the case for our universities. Again, I think we're approaching very quickly, and because of all of the changes around us that are very quick, we're approaching a point where we have to remake the case for higher education. And to do that, we have to understand what is it that and this is our business. This is the business, especially those of us who are in the, you know, in the social sciences and humanities and whatever. We need to defend this space. We need, again, to make the case for this space. It's not a mass production machine that produces people who go work for corporations or whatever. Higher education, historically, the ideal of higher education is very different. And this ideal have lasted for centuries. And now it's unfolding before our eyes.
Well, thank you so much for this intervention. I'll take a couple of questions if there are any. Anyone would like to ask a question from the audience?
Yeah, there.
Please, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I'm Fatima Zahra Haddadiya. I'm a Moroccan student in DI, majoring in the program of public policy, doing educational policies specifically. And these topics of this morning were at the heart of my research, actually. And I'm very happy to be here and to learn from all of you. So my question is about governance of higher education. So Your Excellency mentioned some practices of good governance, but I'm wondering, or I want to ask more about, is there any sort of values or principles that are doable, let's say, in our region, considering the political systems? Because you mentioned previously transparency and trust and accountability, but sometimes these elements or these, let's say, principles are questionable to some extent. And also there is the other thing that your president, you discussed, which is accountability. So what is the nature of accountability that you want to mean? Or actually it's not accountability, it's autonomy. What sort of autonomy you really meant? Because I think there was never there is also a relative autonomy. And thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think this is yours.
No, it's. I think it was talking to Dr. Dalal, but because she is mentioning mainly autonomy, actually, and let me say that I agree with Dr. Ahmed Dalal that we all thought that there is an autonomy, universities autonomies in the United States of America, especially. But what we have seen last year, actually. Showed that no, there are interference in universities. It's not just in the third part countries but it is all over the world actually. So it is really something that we should talk about, and we should actually we have to decide. What do we mean by autonomy? Let me say that sometimes there are some, I'll state clearly, that some political issues which is raised in the campus, and maybe this is sometimes against whatever system in a specific country. Is this part of the autonomy of a university that it is involved in political issues? I myself have an experience with the American University in Cairo, because for some time I was representing the Egyptian government as a counselor of the American University in Cairo. And during that time there was the Egyptian government, and for the other side there was those the Muslim Brotherhood and the American University, because it regards itself as an autonomous university. They used to invite speakers from the Muslim Brotherhoods to address the students. So this was here as a representative of the Egyptian government, and I was how to deal with that, yes. So in this case, and I've said clearly, I said that, well, if this is going to be in a classroom, and this guy who is going to talk to them is going to speak in a classroom as is giving a lecture in a room, so that's okay. Let us open the door for such things, but you cannot allow that to be as a public thing in a university. Is this true? Is this right or not? I cannot say. Yes, but I gave the university the autonomous role which it needed. I'm not sure. But that was my way to do it. I allowed it, but I allowed it in an academic way.
One more question. Go ahead.
Hello, and thank you very much for this talk. It has been a really big pleasure as a former student of information technology and data analytics and coming into comparative literature. This is exactly in the intersection of all of it. And in the last sessions where actually in this institute we gather everyone in the humanities, the last subject was about AI, and it was very interesting. One of the phrases have actually completely shifted my perspective, which was a little bit pessimistic about the future of AI, especially in our region, in which the speaker said that the fight really, or the race of AI is really between USA and China. And that has actually opened up my mind to think that maybe this is actually the advantage of the Arab region, is that we are a little bit further away and therefore we can be more critical towards it. But at the same time, I agree very much with the different, with the different maybe like policies of teachings or ways of teachings in which we embed AI and how we produce knowledge instead of being just afraid of it. And one of those examples was the center of the enlightened disagreement, which is something that is really cool. the sound of it alone. So my question is, in our region, what would be the factors to enhance the making of these centers? And then what would be the factors to actually make it collaborate and communicate with the global? So maybe my question is more addressed to both Laila, Ayhab, and Alfred simultaneously. For the policies, I would have asked questions about the policies for the European region, knowing how much it's actually focusing on that. But I think that for the first time, I don't want to think about policies, and I don't want to think as much about rules, as much as I'm loving how AI is maybe pushing the Arab way of thinking to think ahead instead of thinking always in the past and understanding what has been. And I really want to seize what are the most fruitful ways to make this space happen in our region.
Thank you. Laila, go ahead.
First of all, congratulations, and you're definitely in the right environment and in the right academic career, so that sounds really interesting. I would say the following. You're very right. The AI battle, as it seems, it's a fight between China and the US, but I actually don't believe that. And let me explain what I mean. Yes, that is when it comes to AI developments, AI tools, AI progress. But we're living in a moment where we've moved from inclusion to integration. And when we are all challenging the status quo that we've been given for many, many years, we've absorbed a certain way of thinking. One could argue the Western way of thinking, or a certain way of doing education, and actually that's now being challenged. And that's an exciting opportunity because we're all now leveling up the fields, and innovation, academic progress is coming from all around the world, and we're finding ways through communication to bring this also all around the world. The platforms we've been given, we have not yet fully utilized. You have a wonderful platform now to bring your innovations, your ideas that are happening in this very location to everywhere around the world. And I think that's what has massively changed. So I'm actually quite hopeful because I believe that when it comes to academic progression, to entrepreneurial thinking, to AI innovations, they will not be dominated by one area or the other. And I think we're now going to a much more integrated way of looking at the world that will mean that we're all in a way collaborating more. But I am an optimist, I should say that. And so my encouragement to everybody in this room is, even if you hear this news of, oh, it's just going to happen in the US and China, we all have a role to play, and that can be if you're based in Oman, or if you're based in Morocco, if you're based in Paris. It doesn't really matter where you're based, because now you have the whole world to you really have it now available. I'm conscious I'm talking to those that are privileged enough to have technological access. So I don't know if that answers your question, but if you want to talk about regulation, she's the expert.
Alfred.
Vinzad, to answer that question, you need to bring me back the fourth time so that I give you a whole day lecture on this one. But let me, to answer your questions in a short way, we in Hong Kong are struggling with the same issue. DeepSeek is now in Hangzhou, Alibaba, back home turf, which is far away from Hong Kong. And so we are also struggling with the same, so let alone the Arab world. We in Hong Kong, besides stock market, what else do we have in the AI world, right? And so we are struggling with the same issue. So Europe is struggling with the same issue. It's the big question about China versus US. Well, if you actually hone down to China, it's a big country. Cities are also struggling with the same issue. So first of all, my first question is don't view it as it's like a zero-sum game. It's only the two countries dominate. That's number one. Number two, we are studying this issue as a policy advising unit and also research think tank. The whole AI value chain is really, really long. Okay, from getting the data to someone have to do the algorithm to storing the data in China. For example, Professor Jin could answer. In China, because it's big, there are some regions that because of the geographical location, they could be the one that actually have all the server because they're cooler, they have the renewable energy, and so they could have the server and the algorithm center there, and they will actually transfer. But the data are in the populous region like Shanghai, Peking, Beijing, and Hong Kong. We're actually talking about transferring the data into the serving center in the inner area that have all the hydropower, and then transfer after they do the algorithm, they strip it back. You know what I mean? So the whole value chain, and so Hong Kong also talk about, we may not be the one that invent the computer chips that will empower the AI. We may not even be the one that actually have the server, but in Hong Kong, because of our legal system, of our talents, of our internationalization background, we could be the AI applications, the businesses, the standards, the security, other stuff, right? So what I'm saying is, so that's why you need to bring me back the whole day about the strategy. I think the Arab world need to think about individual countries and individual cities, need to think about your strategic advantage and your own strengths and your limitations, and really look at the whole value chain and pinpoint, this is where I want to go, and this is who I am. And then plug into the AI value chain system and find your unique role. And so Hong Kong is struggling with the same issue, and we are trying to find that in a policy advice for the Hong Kong government. So that's my short answer to the long lecture that you need to bring me back to talk about.
I help.
Yes, actually, there are different views on this, like, China, US. Some people think, yes, there is a huge investment in AI and competition between China and US because some people believe the winner will take it all when it comes to AI. Other people, including our guests here, they think, no, it's more a collaborative game. It's not, it's not a zero-sum game, and maybe everybody can be part of this and participate in this. For me, I think it's in the middle. I wouldn't deny that, yes, China and US will dominate this, for sure. They are the people who are investing the most, right? And the chances they're creating something new are far much higher than any other places creating it. So this is a reality we have to deal with it. The question is how we stay ahead of this, how we catch up or, be part of it. I think there are two different, we need to take AI very seriously. As governments, as universities as well, and as students as well. So Professor Leonard, they gave you an example from Benin where they have a small group of people that are creating wonderful things about AI and so on, right, with a very limited resources. So it can happen. This is the bright side of it. Sometimes, yes, you need a huge investment, but you never know. Maybe somebody sitting in her garage and will produce something, far more advanced than Google or Microsoft and so on. We know this. We learned this from history. So I think, yes, governments need to invest heavily in AI. Universities must move very fast, and we need to adopt very quickly. I believe we need to change the way we teach, to change the way we see AI, to focus on a different alternative kind of skills. For students, I think also they need to take the initiatives. So believe it or not, most of you know about AI and tools more than us. So I think the change kind of AI, it's a little bit, the change is coming from bottom. It's coming from the student mostly. So I don't know how you use AI. I use it in a very primitive way, maybe use it in a different way. And I'm pretty sure most of you use it in more advanced way than I do. So I think students must start, acting collectively or individually and forming groups, educating themselves and even us, and proposing initiatives how to advance AI in our institution and our universities. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Could I just add on one thought for us all to think about? The fact that you asked the question, well, is China versus US and what about us, right? Let me actually ask all of us to think about it. 10 years ago, would any one of us sit in this room and say, how come it's all US owning the whole tech world? Google, Facebook, Apple, the 8 companies own everything. Did you ask the question, how come it's only US? Did we ask that question, right? No, we just assumed that should be the world. Now suddenly, a year or so ago, DeepSeek had emerged. And suddenly people woke up and said, whoa, there are possibilities that's beyond the US dominated tech world. There are hope, there are possibilities that we could maybe play a role. Suddenly, everyone jumped in. Europe say, hey, what about us? Well, they didn't ask that. Europeans didn't ask that question for 20 years. All the tech companies got bought up by the US company. Where were you guys to regulate that and forbid Google buying up all the companies, right? Until DeepSeek emerged. Suddenly, Europe say, what about us? What about our companies, right? And Arab world is coming, what about us? So what I'm saying is China, with DeepSeek and some of the tech companies, suddenly opened up that new possibility for all of us to think about, maybe this is a multi-polar global world that all of us may have a chance. And that is a good thing, but also it's a chaotic world. So we all need to think about it and work together, I think. And that's where I think China presidency says that we need to work with the United Nations paradigm to really look at this issue together. And so it is not going to be one single country dominating the whole system anymore. That's the reality. But how do we go from that system into a new system so that we could work together? This is actually the new challenge for all of us. And that's where I think there are a lot of new possibilities that we haven't wandered into.
I think what's Alfred trying to say that we should thank China.
Okay, on this note, I want to thank you all for joining us in this 10th anniversary celebration. Thank you so much. I want to thank the audience for staying with us this late, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.